Welcome to Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Small malfunction there. No guy saying my name, so I get to say it all by myself. Music today, DJ for a day. I'm not sure. I think I know who provided this music. I think it's going to be an anonymous contribution, if I understand correctly. I'll just have to confirm that. But you should enjoy today's music. Oops, as put together. Well, we'll just cut that off. As put together by one of our listeners from the Indiegogo campaign. Thank you, everybody who supported us on Indiegogo. We very much appreciate it. Today is a big show. Wednesday edition of the program. We've got games to talk about yesterday. Manchester United just obliterated by Manchester City in the derby. As expected, I suppose. I don't think anybody came into that game thinking that David Moyes' team was going to figure it out in short order and beat Manchester City, a much better team over the course of the season so far than United. We have Kevin Alexander on the show today. In terms of guests, he is the writer of the Boston Magazine piece we talked about in depth yesterday about the New England Revolution and the fact that the New England Revolution are the most underachieving team in Major League Soccer. It has developed into a situation where the Crafts stand out among MLS owners, despite the fact they are so successful when it comes to their NFL franchise. So we'll talk to Kevin Alexander about his writing process and what he uncovered during the effort to write that piece, and the importance of bringing that story into the mainstream, which, again, we talked about significantly yesterday. Also on the show, Alejandro Bedoya, winger for the U.S. men's national team, and not in France. I almost said Spain. That is not where Nantes is. Nantes is in France. Alejandro will join us at 11 o'clock, so make sure you're looking out for that. It should be a good conversation. Off the top of the show, again, mentioning the games that we had yesterday. Manchester United, Manchester City, Arsenal pulling. Is that pulling an Arsenal? Is that too harsh to say that they pulled an Arsenal when Mathieu Flamini gave up the own goal in the dying minutes of that game against Swansea to basically drop 2 points for the Gunners? And now, again, I think it was always through the course of the season, there was this innate sense that the Arsenal was just not going to have enough, that they were improved over last season, that they did make some significant moves in the summer that helped them out. Now, the roller coaster ride that is Mesut Ozil in that team is fascinating to watch. But Arsenal's going to come up short. And look, I think somebody said this on Twitter, and I take a lot in on Twitter. I apologize, I can't identify who said this. But essentially, Arsenal does this thing to their fans where they take them up to this gigantic height, and then they just drop them right back down so that they can be satisfied with fourth place. That's Arsenal's lot in life now. You can be satisfied with fourth, guys. There you go. Right now, Chelsea, 69 points, but 2 games in hand on City, who picked up points, only 3 points back, who obviously picked up points on Chelsea with the win over Manchester United yesterday. The Premier League is shaking out, and it looks like it's going to be City and Chelsea down to the wire. Is Liverpool a legitimate title contender? I suppose they are. Anything can happen now between now and the end of the season. With 8 games left for Liverpool, 9 games left for City, 7 games left for Chelsea. Makes it a little tough to figure out because you can't count on those points necessarily. And we need to look at the fixture list, the schedule, in order to really determine nothing, but I mean to sort of plan out what we think is going to happen through the run out of the Premier League season. The biggest news in Europe yesterday had nothing to do with the Premier League results or Bayern Munich locking up the Bundesliga title. What is today? March 26th? Today is March 26th, and Bayern Munich has locked up the Bundesliga title. Just absolutely stunning how dominant they were in Germany this season. And now they have an opportunity to go cap it off with a Champions League title to proclaim themselves, put themselves on that pedestal as one of the best teams in Europe. Over the last, where are you going to put them in the higher? Where does Bayern Munich fit in terms of best teams in Europe? It's it's tough to say. And you have the specter of Barcelona. And yeah, obviously Pep Guardiola is the connection. You have the specter of Barcelona. And remember, this is the team that won the Champions League last year. And they've stepped it up a notch. They are now the class of Europe by themselves. I mean, Bayern Munich, Gap, Real Madrid, Gap, Barcelona, PSG, Gap. Is that what we're looking at here? Where does City fit in that mix? Where does Chelsea fit? You don't get the feeling that the Premier League teams are really competitors for the title of best team in Europe. And obviously, it's proved out on the field this season. Proved out on the field. Eduardo on Twitter says, better title race, EPL or La Liga? I think that depends on your proclivities, the type of soccer you like to watch. But both of them are fascinating. Both of them are good. How can you not like a La Liga title race that includes somebody else besides Barcelona and Real Madrid? Go Atletico, right? Go Atleti. Let's go. Go out there and all the way down to the end. Make it fascinating. Make it interesting. You can tell the intensity, not that there's ever an El Clasico without intensity, but you can tell how high the intensity level is in Spain right now based on what we just saw on the weekend. Based on what happened on Sunday. Game was on fire. If an entire soccer match can be on fire, that game was on fire. Also yesterday was the day that David Beckham went to the Capitol. Not the United States Capitol, but the capital of Florida in Tallahassee, where he schmoozed and chatted up. Is that the right phrase? Probably not. That probably implies something else. Where he talked to politicians, Florida's elected officials, in regards to getting a little help to build that stadium in Miami, presumably at pitching the Port of Miami deal, Port of Miami site, holding up those pretty pictures. Speaking of pretty pictures, new stadium pouring out, and yeah, it's a stunner. But those Port Miami renderings, holding those up for those politicians, slapping them on the back, probably, picking up a twang or a drawl, whatever Southerners in Florida have. And taking selfies with everybody. David Beckham, governor of Florida, Rick Scott, taking selfies. That's what you had yesterday at the Capitol in Tallahassee. And everybody else, too. Hey, David Beckham is in the house. What do you do? What do you do? He's there because of you, because you are someone who can help him out. What do you do? You take a selfie, or you take a picture in general. You get somebody else to take. But come on, really, if you only have a couple of minutes with David, he's a busy guy. You go, you do this thing, smile, and it looks like David availed himself to everybody who wanted a picture. There are selfies on top of selfies. David Beckham at the Cap. Now, was he effective in his message? We'll see. Does a selfie make a stadium? I don't know yet. We'll have to see if that works out for David Beckham and his group. They've got a nice plan. It's an interesting stadium opportunity. We'll say it that way. It's going to cost a lot of money. And I suppose that if everybody else is going to get a little bit of a handout, might as well go try. Again, I said this yesterday when we talked to Chris Whittingham from Miami. They might get a little positive PR spin on this deal if they just said, you know what, we don't need it. We're good. We got Marcelo Clore over here with his billions. We're good. We don't need your public money, no matter how it is manipulated through the system in order to be available to professional sports teams. I guess, is Orlando getting this deal? I'm sure they are. I'm sure Orlando is getting this money. Sure they are. So David went to Tallahassee to pitch the plan. And I guess that makes sense. David Beckham in Tallahassee is a humorous sort of mental picture for just because of the culture clash, because he's David Beckham. And that's not to say that Tallahassee's not a fine town and that the elected officials of Florida aren't fine people or cultured people for that matter. It's just interesting. Just an interesting. We needed a camera. We needed someone following David around. Maybe there's a documentary being made about the effort to put together a team in Miami that we don't know about. I damn well hope so. We need that. We need that film. We need Beckham takes Miami or whatever. We need that. Give me your titles for the David Beckham Miami experience. We're on Twitter at Soccer Morning. You can hit us up with questions, comments, concerns. And the phone lines are open. Kevin Alexander from Boston Magazine and other places, but the author of the New England Revolution piece in the Boston Magazine, will join us at 10:30. So you have some time here. 347-756-6276. And what I'll do is I'll present to you a question that was posed to me yesterday on Twitter that spawned a bit of a discussion over the rules, see my quotes, rules regarding wearing jerseys. Now, it's kind of spread out into a discussion about all sorts of jerseys from all sorts of sports, not just soccer. I made the comment that in terms of wearable in public, and I don't mean going to a game. You go to a game for any sport, you can wear a jersey. I don't have a problem with it. You can be 85, you could be completely out of shape, wear a jersey. That's absolutely cool. But in terms of casual wear, going out into the world and, I don't know, going shopping, going to the mall, taking your kid to the park, whatever you do on your daily routine, whatever you do when you're not at work, wearing jerseys, there's a line. I don't know where it is. It depends on the person, I guess. If you're 40 and you're rocking tats and body mods and your hair is of a subculture genre and you wear a jersey, I don't think people are going to look twice. But, if you're more the buttoned up type, if you're more clean cut, normally you wear a suit to work, that's your kind of thing, or business casual is really your go-to. When you go into public in a jersey, I don't know. If there aren't thousands of other people wearing that same jersey around you, you might look ridiculous. But here's the question, as it relates to soccer, sent to me by Alexis Bencomo yesterday. If I'm buying a new jersey, do I get my favorite player's name, my own, or leave it blank? Is there a preferred style? I don't have an opinion on this one. I don't. I think that the putting your own name on a jersey, any jersey, is a strange choice. I'm generally speaking a live and let live kind of guy. So look, if you want to wear your jersey out in public into the world where, if you're 40 or 45 or 50 or even over 30, I suppose, you want to wear your jersey, you can do it. Just be aware you might look ridiculous. But when it comes to putting a name on a shirt, those are the options. You can leave it blank, put your own name on it, or get the name of a player. And the range of responses I got on Twitter last night when I sent this out for the crowd to consider it was pretty staggering. It was all over the place. The range. Lots of people saying, don't get the favorite player because players leave. Players leave. You don't want to get a player's name and then have that guy be sold the next season, transferred out the next year. Here's Nick on Twitter. I go with blank soccer jerseys. Players move around too much. Players move around in this sport more than they move around in almost any other sport, except for maybe in MLS. So if you get the big stars jersey, or let's say, one of the go-to moves in any sport is to get the young phenom's name, right? Get that guy that is going to be a star, that's starting to show promise. He's young. He's 20, 21. He's going to be a star. You want to get that name on a shirt before anybody else does, or just because you're excited for the future. He breaks out, he gets sold. Whoops. So what do you do now? But again, getting your own name, that's rough. You're not on the team. Now this can go into the we discussion. I'm not doing that. I have no problem with people who say we. No problem at all. You feel like you're part of that club in whatever small way you are, especially if you go out and support them every week at the stadium. You want to say we, say we. I don't think that hurts. It is a tribe, right? That's the nature of sports and specifically soccer. It's tribal. So if you say we, I'm fine with that. But to wear the jersey, to have a jersey with a number, are we doing numbers here? What are we talking about, numbers? You can't do a name with no number, right? David Conrad says, this is why it's good for jerseys to look like golf shirts, so we can go out without looking ridiculous. Yeah, this is the gift that Nike has given to us this World Cup cycle. They've given us a U.S. men's national team or U.S. national team home jersey that we can wear out to the world without looking. It looks like a golf shirt. It looks like you belong to the U.S. soccer country club. That's what it looks like. Or perhaps you know what it looks like. The U.S. home shirt or the U.S. primary shirt for the World Cup this year. It looks like a shirt that a company gets printed up to give to their employees or make their employees buy. I always hated that, by the way. Hey, guys, you can buy a shirt with the company's name on it. Really? Here's the polo style shirt that you can buy with our logo right there on the breast. It's only $35. Really? That's what I need to spend my money on. I come here, hate working for you. I'm going to take the money you give me and give it right back to the company, to promoting the company. You better really believe in your company you're buying that shirt. But if it's given to you, so this is what it looks like a U.S. soccer employee issue polo. That's what it looks like. Now with the name and the number, we'll see. Definitely looks like a standard issue polo. I'm going through these tweets in response to this. Soccer Greg, the line for jersey wearing directly relates to body mass index. Sadly, I've crossed that line. No jerseys for me. Yeah, look, the big guy, the fat guy in the soccer jersey, I don't know. Unless you're going out and playing pickup and your nickname is Gordo, I don't know. And I'm not going to cast any. I don't think. I mean, look, not exactly a big guy, but I'm not sure I look any better. Soccer jerseys, as somebody pointed out yesterday, are made for people with really good bodies. You better have a good physique if you're going to pull that off, especially the authentic ones, because they're meant to be form-fitting. Now, if you wear a drape, if you put on a soccer jersey and it drapes, you're not really trying to replicate the look of the team. You're just flying the colors. Hey, that's fine too. Chris Allen searches London on Twitter. 12 years old for your name, so you have to be young to get your own name. That's absolutely a pass. There are a couple of different exceptions to these rules. And again, these are arbitrary. Go do what you want to do. Be aware you might look ridiculous. But there are a couple of rules. Rules for not looking ridiculous. Well, one exception to the name on your own name on the jersey is if you're a kid. If you're a kid, you're dreaming of playing for them one day, get that. Get that for your kid. Get your kid's name. Now, last name Davis, whatever their first name is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Go with whatever you want to go with. Make whatever makes the kid happy. Another exception to the old guy in a jersey rule. If you are doing something athletic, I think you get a pass. A couple of people said, I'm going to the gym, I'm going running. Can I wear my jersey? Yeah, you can do that. Milan rules. I'm not sure who this is. You're on the air.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, there you are. What's your name?
Yeah, sorry about that. It's Paolo from New Jersey.
What's up, Paolo?
Yeah, I think I called you about a month ago, and we were talking about Pareja, the new position in Colorado. Mm-hmm. But I just want to say what a great transition he's done from Colorado to Dallas. And I know that Dallas had a great early start last year, but I think they're in much better hands now than before with Pareja there.
Interesting you bring that up. This is a hard left turn for us right now, but I'm cool to talk about this, Paolo.
No,
go ahead.
Actually, I heard about your jersey comments about when people wearing jerseys from other countries. I'm a big fan of AC Milan, and back in the 90s, they had the sponsor Opel, O-P-E-L.
Yeah.
So everybody was just like, wow, what team is that? Opel. And I was like, no, man.
Well, yeah, but that was the
Milan.
that was the 90s before people really understood what a soccer shirt was supposed to look like, right?
Yeah. So I know it's all cool now, but one thing I just want to say, it's been about a week after the whole Champions League crisis in CONCACAF.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember back in when DC and Houston had great teams, and they were really pushing the Mexican teams hard. Given the salary cap issues that the MLS has, it's baby steps. And
Sure.
I remember when the Mexican teams were scoring 3-0, 4-0 at the U.S., and the tie was completely over by then. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Everybody's just got to calm down, and it'll take baby steps, but we'll get there.
All right, I appreciate the opinion, Pella. I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. And by the way, on the Colorado and Dallas Pareja situation, I actually wrote something about that for U.S. soccer players that I'll link to on my Twitter account later on today. Sort of a review of Dallas and their start and comparing it to last year and some of the differences. I appreciate the call, Pella.
Yeah, really great stuff and great show. I'm calling from Indonesia, but
sweet.
Great stuff over there. Yeah,
right,
keep up the good work, Jason.
Thanks a lot. I love it when people call from far-flung locales. Love that. We've got that guy in, I think, Budapest. Can't remember his name. There's a guy in Budapest. Now, look, again, you can wear what you want. It's a free country. Most places are free to wear what you want. Wear what you want. But when you go out in public, just be aware that what you're wearing will get you judged. And I have a couple of, I'm not a jersey collector. Not. Partly because the expense is exorbitant. It's insane how much it costs to buy the authentic or the rep. I don't even know which one, the authentic or the replica. One of the two U.S. soccer shirts. I guess this is the most expensive one, so it's probably the authentic one. It's $150. I mean, I guess that's the going rate, but I'm not buying a U.S. shirt for $150. I don't have $150 to spend. I just don't. I'm sure Nike's going to make out on that deal. I'm sure they'll sell thousands upon thousands of them. Not to me. I'd love to have one. I just can't justify that cost. So that is part of it for me. Is it costs a lot of money. You jersey collectors out there, you guys are insane. I mean that in the most polite, loving way possible. But again, to wear it out in a public setting that is not involving the game. If you're going to a pub or a bar or a live watching event, viewing event, yeah, wear it. That's cool. I have a problem with that. That's great. In fact, that same rule applies for things like college football or the NFL. Now, I don't think anybody should ever wear an NBA jersey in public. That's my personal opinion, but I'm sure people do that. I was told hockey sweaters look good. Okay, go wear a hockey sweater. But you go out and you have to find your line. We go back to this question of what do you get on the back? I think I'd go with blank. That would be my move. Not making any statements, just saying I'd go with blank. Got a couple of people who say if you get the player's name and they leave, then you have a throwback. Okay. All right. 313, you're on the air.
Hey, Jason, it's Isaac from Pittsburgh.
Isaac, what's up, man?
Hey, listen, you just mentioned the ridiculous cost of a jersey, and that's why I think, if you want to wear that thing, you better wear that thing because you paid enough.
All right, so wait. So it's an investment. Now, there's also an argument to be made that jerseys can be collectible without needing to be worn. Now, I know they're meant to be worn, but you can have a jersey, and I don't know if you have to put it under glass on your wall. But you can display them. You can have that sort of thing working for you.
And so I think there are a lot better things you can do with your money. Even when you're expressing, your devotion to your team. That's why, even if they weren't as expensive as they were, these jerseys, they're you expressing your personal devotion to your team.
And I get that. Isaac, I get that. I just think that in a non-soccer context, they look ridiculous. I'm not saying that I don't respect you for supporting your team if you go out in public in a jersey. If you're walking around my neighborhood or the mall or the grocery store in a jersey, I'm not saying, oh, look, that guy really loves that team. That's the first thing I think. The second thing I think is Is he like 35? What is he doing? That's my second thought. Am I wrong?
Well, maybe in this brave new world, we can start to think that more power to you, brother.
All right. So what do you?
I think that's why I have more, like "Don't Tread on Me" U.S. soccer shirts.
Okay.
And actual jerseys. I think that's a good medium ground.
Sure.
But hey, thanks for taking my call.
I appreciate it, Isaac. Thanks a lot, man. There goes Isaac from Pittsburgh, 202. You're on the air. Last call before we take a break.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to ask Jason a quick question about.
I'm here. What's up, man? Go ahead. Throw it out.
Hey, just I was with Barbara Brava in DC United.
Yeah.
And me, my wife, and my kids, like last season, even though it was abysmal. Long story short, James Riley would give us a jersey every game.
Wow.
What if we wore it?
Wait.
What's your take on it?
All right. See, I have not yet figured out how to handle game worn stuff. I think of game worn stuff as that's the one that goes under glass. That's the one. That's the one.
But we have we've been season ticket holders at DC United since 2001, and every season when you meet the team, they give those things away. So we have this on the wall in the trunk of the car, two in my office, and then the kids, they want to wear them now. So
okay,
what do I do with them?
Kids can do whatever they want. First of all, kids can do whatever they want. If the kids want to wear them and you don't have any particular reason to keep them from wearing them, yeah, that's absolutely fine. I wouldn't wear anything game worn by a player. I would never do that. I just think that's strange. And then again, man, it's sort of all about the context. If you're going out to the game, you can wear the jersey and you're among friends. No one's going to look at you sideways for wearing a jersey at a game. But if you wear the jersey, I don't know. There are certain places where it just seems. This goes for NFL jerseys too.
Oh, that's a whole nother ballpark in itself.
I see 50-year-old guys walking around in NFL jerseys, and it blows my mind.
They paid $300 for it. They shoot, I'm gonna wear it.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right, man. Well, what about the name? If you buy a jersey for your team or the national team or whoever, are you putting a name on the back? Are you getting a name? No name.
Never do a name. At the worst case scenario, if I do a rec league soccer or something, I'll put a nickname or something. But I would never do. If all case scenario, if I get a U.S. national team, I'm going straight blank.
Okay, that is another exception to the rule. You get a nickname or something like that. That's fine. Now, there is a line between good taste and bad taste and stupid jokes and good jokes, right?
Yeah.
We all know that.
Clean jokes.
I mean, I think that there's been this rash of couples getting jerseys with customized names, and it's a funny joke about how they do it or what. Come on.
Yeah, me and the wife did it. Me and the wife did it maybe 5 years ago. Yeah, I know you can trash me on there. It's fine.
No, I don't know what it said. You keep that.
You know those jerseys sitting there now. Them things are sitting in the garage in a box. We haven't taken them out. We were born once and a meet a team day. Everybody thought it was cute, and then we're like, you know what? Nah, leave them in there. Let them collect us. I hope the numbers fade off so we can give them to our kids.
You outgrew it. All right, man. I appreciate the phone call. Thanks a lot. There you go. There's your jersey talk for the day. That's I just think that's a fun topic. It's a fun topic. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna grab Kevin Alexander, writer of The Crafts Are the Worst Odors in the League, and Boston Magazine. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Back on Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Jason Davis here with you. Happy to be joined on the telephone by Kevin Alexander, the author of the Boston Magazine piece that we discussed in depth yesterday on the New England Revolution and specifically the Crafts are the worst owners in the league. Kevin, how are you?
I'm good, Jason. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for writing this piece. I mean, I think that, and this is sort of the way that I framed it yesterday for our audience, who are all, very engaged in the soccer community, most of them American, most of them MLS experts, for lack of a better word. It wasn't a whole lot of new things for those people, but I think what it was a good overview of the situation as it exists in Foxborough with the Revolution. And certainly an important part of your story was making this a wider issue for people who may not be aware that the Crafts have this dual side to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially because I'm from Boston, I grew up there, and the Crafts are deified, and it makes sense. I mean, just what they've done with the Patriots. And as I keep saying, the Crafts have been very, very important for MLS. Mm-hmm. Like without them and the Hunts, there wouldn't be any MLS. And so it's very important that people recognize that. And then they also recognize that at this point, that sort of having that past isn't enough. I think where MLS is right now.
I think that's the difficult thing for people to determine, is where the line is. When do we stop saying doing because you're falling behind and growing the way it is, Kevin, then maybe we're not talking about this.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's definitely a case of keeping up with the Joneses, but I think that's a credit to MLS, right? That the fact that you're having these great experiences in these other parks, everyone's seeing their own soccer-specific stadiums, and it isn't a case of, 8 or 9 of the teams not having that. And so when Revs fans see that, and they also see, the lack of access to Foxborough, no public transportation, no signs, so it still feels like it's a temporary home, but it isn't a temporary home. And so I think that's it's distressing for both the players that I talk to and for the fans.
What ultimately made you decide to write this story, and really how was whatever your relationships are with the publication? I can't imagine that the pitch is straightforward when you say I want to write about MLS.
Yeah, no, and that's usually not a selling point for a general interest magazine like Boston Magazine, but for a 4,000 word piece. So actually, this really came from a story I did 2 years ago for Hemispheres magazine about the rivalry between Portland and Seattle. Mm-hmm. So I got to spend some time with the Timbers Army. I was at Providence Park for a Timber Sounders game. A lot of it ended up revolving around Roger Levesque and his sort of cult status in Seattle and how he was hated in Portland. But point being, I was at the game and I got to be down on the field, and I just saw the energy of a Portland Seattle game, and it blew me away. It just totally blew me away. And selfishly, being from Boston, I wanted that for the Revs. So I started talking to people in MLS, started talking to players. I started to just kind of envision, like, what is a path to get the Revolution into a conversation where, one day we could be having that experience in New England. So that's really where it started a couple of years ago with that story.
Now, again, one of the elements of this story and why it is a big deal, especially to soccer people, is that there are so many possibilities. It feels like Boston can be very much like Portland or Seattle in the enthusiasm for this sport if it was presented in a more appropriate, professional, in a more fitting environment, so to speak.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, if they were in a stadium within public trans, or closer to the city, because I understand, like, acknowledging that creating a stadium within Boston city limits and all the headaches there is almost impossible. But even these the towns around, and that's what's obviously been discussed, like Somerville and Revere, that would be so huge. And you could just see if there was a stadium in Somerville that maybe 25,000 people, it would be so packed. There would be so much energy around it. There's a lot of really, really passionate soccer fans in Boston. It's just that they're not necessarily passionate about the Revs, and that's a tragedy. They should be. That's their local team, and Boston's a really big sports city.
Now, you're in the piece. You mentioned that request to the Krafts for a comment was turned down, and Jonathan Kraft actually made an excuse about preparing for a Patriots playoff game at the time you were working on the piece. Did you follow up with him after that playoff game? Was there any response?
I did. So that was the initial request. Because actually the piece was originally going to run in March, at the kickoff of the season, and for magazine reasons got bumped to April. And so during that time, I actually went back to them and I said, look, because, headline aside, when you don't want to just totally sideswipe someone and come out of nowhere. And so I said, look, this piece is really critical of the Krafts. I think it would be a benefit to them if they did an interview with me and got a chance to speak for themselves to some of these criticisms. And there was a long pause, and they ended up declining, obviously.
Interesting approach, and I made the point yesterday that you feel for. Well, you feel for a lot of people in this situation. You feel for the fans, certainly, first and foremost. I feel for Brian Bilello, who I think is doing the best with a bad situation that he possibly can.
For sure.
Sorry,
go on.
No. Well, I mean, the fans constantly bring up the stadium, and I came across something yesterday where Brian had done an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, which is the new thing that everybody does, and before he was even asked a question, he put it out there. I'm not talking about the stadium. So this is obviously top of mind for the fans, the stadium situation, because that's from where everything would jump off in order to make this team competitive with the rest of the league in terms of image and people in the stands and atmosphere. And they just, at this point, it's not moving anywhere, and that's the frustration. And I suppose that in your contacts with the club, there wasn't any real. It was all kind of evasive generalities.
Yes, no, that was the frustrating thing. And to be fair to Brian, he obviously sensed that frustration in our interview, but he couldn't, take it anywhere because they couldn't announce anything, and so it was that stalemate that you get where you're just like, okay, what are we going to do here? But I mean, one of the things is the Krafts have kind of spun the fact that they own Gillette as a positive for the Revolution, saying, look, we don't have to take a bad deal because we're not sitting here paying rent. But the opposite side of that, obviously, is where do they get the onus to really get any deal done? If you're sitting on land that you own and you don't feel the pressure, as they said, they don't feel pressure to make a bad deal, but you don't really feel pressure to make any deal. So it's kind of you can spin it both ways, but for the fans and for everyone else, it feels like there isn't that. They're not incentivized to do that sort of thing.
No, there's no financial pressure on the Krafts to do anything with the Revolution except let them be what they are, let them exist as it's sort of outlined in your piece. And you think that the only real pressure can come from above Kraft, but really, I'm not sure that there is anybody above Kraft, because even if you wanted to point to Don Garber and MLS, Garber's got very strong ties to Robert Kraft. They go back to Garber's NFL days. And it's been suggested to me that, that loyalty would preclude Garber from ever really stepping out and saying, we're pushing the Revs to do this. There's some lip service given. Yeah, we want to see the Revs in a new stadium, but it doesn't ever seem like it's actual pressure. And you can't imagine the league pushing Kraft out and saying, we're going to sell your rights, or you need to sell your rights.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, as sort of one of the founding investor operators in the league, I don't think that's going to happen. And one of the things I mentioned, and Grant Wall talked a little bit about this, is that's sort of why I brought up selling the team, because I think something that people need to understand is it's not fun when owners are entirely rational and pragmatic when it comes to their teams. Like, you want people who get visibly upset when their team loses. You want people who want to make changes and feel the pain of the fans. Like, obviously the ownership group at Sporting KC comes to mind. Mm-hmm. There's a reason people get rich and then buy sports teams and not vice versa. Exactly. It's a passion project first, not a business one, for the best kinds of owners. And, the Crafts are very savvy business people, and they see the Revs as a business, and it's a business that's not doing that well for them. So they don't really see why it would make financial sense to do things like that. But in sports ownership, that isn't always the case.
Did you explore at all Sunil Gulati's connection to the Revs, the U.S. soccer president who has worked for the team? Is that something that
I did?
Go ahead.
Sorry, go on.
No. If you did, I'd love to hear it.
No, I did and reached out, but I didn't really get anywhere with that. What was really interesting to me is how just a few years ago, sort of before Bolello was on top of the organization, how muddled up it was really hard to tell who was running things, and like the organization through the front office, people had really strange roles. It wasn't as traditional as it is now. They've sort of shored that up during that time, but it was frankly pretty hard to parse all of that sort of stuff.
It's interesting that in the aftermath of this, and I mentioned I think it's important for this to become a mainstream thing. I said I don't think it's going to get any run on EEI, but it's still good for people outside of the soccer bubble to know about this. But I'm not sure that it's going to result in any pressure. And it's interesting. Steve Nicol, former Revs head coach, now on ESPN as an analyst, he hit Twitter last night and said he's seen models and plans for a stadium. He knows the Crafts want a stadium as much as the fans do. And Taylor Twellman said some positive things about the Crafts. They engender loyalty. People love the Crafts when they play for them and when they work for them. But I suppose that makes it even more difficult to sort of pull them out and say, hey, you're doing this part wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of two things going on there. And I spoke to Taylor yesterday. But one thing is, to be fair to the Crafts, they tend to be pretty loyal to on the management side. They keep people around for a long time, which the criticism of that is, it's not really as results based as you'd like to see.
Sure.
But I think when I talk to a lot of players, it's sort of the opposite in terms of, you look at someone like Twellman, who's at ESPN, or Steve Ralston, who's with the Dynamos, or Matt Reese with the Galaxy. Those guys should absolutely be coaching in New England. Mm-hmm. They should have made a concerted effort to keep those guys around, to teach the younger players, and to continue the legacy from their days as a dominant force. And, when I talk to some veteran players in MLS right now, they see the fact that those guys didn't stick with the team as a bad sign, because they're saying, okay, these are some of the biggest names in New England Revolution history. Why aren't they still with the team? Why haven't they kept them on? And that actually worries them. But you're right. I mean, on the flip side of that, there is some loyalty, and the Crafts, especially as people, and everyone loves Robert Kraft. He's a people person. Everyone talks about how he remembers the names of your wife and your kids and all of that. They're great people. And when you meet them, and that makes it all the harder to sort of speak critically about them.
The interesting thing about the Revs situation, and I know this wasn't part of your piece, but it just occurred to me that this is a legitimate argument against parity in MLS. I mean, you could say what you want about giving every team a chance every season, and that giving more fans a reason to care for most of the year, playoffs and everything else. But in this case, it really is sort of propping up what the Revs do, and give Jay Heaps credit, and they definitely have an academy that's mining some talent up there in New England, and there are some very good players. But there's that element of, well, if there wasn't parity, if other teams were allowed to kind of run off and do their own thing, the Revs would really be left behind and some change would be forced.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to, let something bad happen in order to enact change. And you're right. I think that's a great point, and I actually wish that I had brought it up in the piece. But so thank you for.
Well, you can't cover everything, Kevin. And then again, you said it's 4,000 words and there's so much there. There's so many layers to this. Again, I hope this doesn't just fade away. I imagine that for Boston sports media, it's going to be a flash in the pan, if anything. But I hope that people sort of realize that there is so much potential there. It's not necessarily about hating the Crafts, because they have done so much for American soccer in the past, Robert Kraft specifically, but it is sort of about, well, look what Boston could be. Look at what New England as an area could be as a soccer hotbed. If only something different was happening. And I don't know if there's an end game here. I don't know if you see one, but I am glad that your piece is out there in a, as I said, general interest magazine like Boston Magazine.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And as I've said, I just want the Revs to be part of the general conversation of sports in Boston. Like I wanted to bring that into the general conversation, into the general public, because obviously you talk to the fans and they're so passionate, but they're on the side, they're on the blogs, they're on Reddit, etc. And my goal in bringing a piece like that to Boston Magazine and having a general audience read it is to get people talking about that situation and for people to try and understand the situation a little bit. So hopefully, it's started to spark the conversation. I've been pretty happy that people have wanted to talk about it. So hopefully they'll move forward from there.
Kevin Alexander, author of The Crafts Are the Worst Owners in the League, asterisk. As I said yesterday, it's an asterisk. And then in Boston Magazine, also writes on soccer at Esquire. You can follow him on Twitter, KAlexander03. Thanks for your 03. Thanks for your time, Kevin. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
There he goes. Kevin Alexander, author of the Boston Magazine piece. Good stuff there. A good little, behind the scenes, his thinking, his decision to get this. Again, I think that we have to realize that even pitching this piece to a magazine like Boston Magazine is not a straightforward process. I mean, you can play up the element of, well, the Crafts are great NFL owners. Here's the flip side of that in soccer. You can play that up. That's the hook. But not every editor is going to buy in. So Kevin got the editors over at Boston Magazine to buy in, and I'm glad he did. I'm glad we have something to talk about here. This has been something, it's not going to be a regular discussion here. This has been something we've been thinking about at Soccer Morning for some time. Both Trevor and I have lived in Boston, and both of us have, feelings about what that town is and could be in soccer, being soccer guys. Trevor specifically very adamant about that town being Portland East, Seattle East. How amazing would that be? How much better would MLS be financially, atmosphere, all of those factors, if there was a 25,000 seat stadium somewhere within public transportation reach, in the immediate environs of Boston, Massachusetts? I mean, it's to be an idiot not to realize the possibilities. And I'm sure the Crafts do. I'm sure the Crafts think, oh, that'd be great. But they have no reason to change anything, to push. All right. Turn now to Europe and news out of UEFA. This is fascinating. And if you haven't heard about this, and I may have teased it not that long ago, this will kind of blow your mind a little bit. Let's get to it in a second. 347, you're on the air.
Hey, what's going on? It's Eddie in Brooklyn.
Hey, what's up, Eddie?
No, I just want to talk back about that New England thing, because I remember I made a trip last year to go see the Red Bulls play the Revs, and I was actually stunned as to A, how far the stadium was from Boston proper, and B, just how amateur that atmosphere was. I was absolutely stunned the way they handled the game day. The troop that I had to make, I was like 40 minutes away from Boston, and I was just completely shell shocked as to. It kind of put everything in context. Like, I understand now when I watch it on TV why the Revs look the way they look.
Yeah.
And it's because of being able to experience it firsthand. And everything that was written in that piece, like I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Eddie, you saw it firsthand. You got that education. I think for a lot of people, the education comes to this piece and where it outlines the issues of just even getting there. You want to go support your team. You want to go watch the revolution. There's just not everyone's going to jump in their own individual car and drive. And some people don't have cars. If you are an urban dweller, if you're a modern urban dweller, you might not have a car. Why would you need one? Public transportation is great. So when you want to go, and look, that's the market, right? I mean, that's what MLS has finally come around to in the last 5 or 6 years. The idea that really the core base of their fans are people in their 20s and their 30s who have a little bit extra money to spend and will go stand in the supporter section, will be the loudest, will give them the best atmosphere. Boston is thick with college kids who can scrabble together $150 to buy tickets for a couple of games and would love to go out and do it. Drink some beer, have some fun, sing some songs. You can't get there. You can't even get there. It's like something out of some kind of weird fantasy knights in armor movie. Like where is Foxborough? There is no path to find it. It's insane because this is what soccer is supposed to be. This is what we're trying to make it in this country. And there is one obvious example. Because, look, even if you want to ID Frisco and Bridgeview and Commerce City, those are different kind of towns. Those are different kind of situations. And, yeah, they're not perfect. And Kevin Alexander had a great line in which he called them marquee rest stops, which I chuckled at. But those situations are perfect. But they're miles ahead of where Gillette Stadium in Foxborough is for the Revolution. Yeah. Because at least
it's the same thing for us over here. Like for the Rebels, like I live in Brooklyn, down by Coney Island. Getting to Red Bull Arena is nowhere near easy. Mm-hmm. Even if I want to go public transportation, I feel like I'm one of the damn hobbits trying to get to that friggin' volcano and drop the ring. And like it's a quest, it's a journey. But compared to what I had to do in Boston, it's a piece of cake.
Yeah, there you go. It's all relative, right? Mm-hmm. Appreciate the call, Eddie. Appreciate it, man.
All right, Jay.
Thanks up. There goes Eddie in Brooklyn. Talking about the Rev situation. I'm going to get to this UEFA development because Alejandro Bedoya will join us in 5 or 6 minutes. The UEFA countries have voted. By the way, they're having their conference in Kazakhstan. Okay. They have voted to create a Nations League starting in the 2018-19 season. After all, 54 UEFA members agreed to back the competition at their Congress in Kazakhstan. The format is not yet solidified, but essentially what they're going to do is they're going to turn international soccer into a league. They're going to take all of those friendly dates that would normally be, England versus Denmark at Wembley for no stakes. They're going to turn those dates into competitive matches with leagues, with leagues tiers. There will be promotion and relegation. 3 or 4 divisions. There will be teams. There will be groups of 4, and this is all outlined in the Telegraph. We'll see if this format holds. But here's what they're saying could happen: 16-team top flight, split into 4 groups of 4. Home and away fixtures taking place alongside qualifying matches for the World Cup and European Championships. The winners of each 4 groups would then advance to a Final Four tournament at a neutral venue, with a semifinal and a final taking place over several days during the summer in odd-numbered years. Now, 702, you're on the air. You're on the air, 702. What's up?
Is this Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Yeah, Alejandro Bedoya here. It's Jeremy.
Oh, okay. You're just a touch early. Let me take a break. We're still on the air for a second. Let me take a break. When we come back, we'll get this all set up. We'll get Alejandro Bedoya on the show. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Stay right there. We'll be right back. Back on Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Jason Davis, joined now via telephone by Nantes and U.S. men's national team winger Alejandro Bedoya. Alejandro, how are you, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming on. Let me talk about France first. I want to start in France. There haven't been a lot of American players who have gone over there. Carlos Bocanegra, Charlie Davies. Why is that, do you think?
Well, actually, I wish I could tell you a flat-out answer, the reason why, but I don't know. I really don't know why there haven't been more. Obviously, everybody's more in tune with the English Premier League, the Spanish League, the Bundesliga, and leagues like that, Italy. But in general, Americans really haven't had, I guess, the respect, the big name as a player that's marketable and can be on a transfer to one of the big leagues here in Europe, and hopefully I can change that view of American players here. But I think also it could be something, a little bit animosity towards the American player in France, maybe, even though that could be just a minority. But I think in general, that the general consensus around here, not just in France though, but in Europe, is if they had the chance to sign an American player or a player of a different nationality, most likely they would choose the person with the player with the other nationality.
It's definitely a two-way street. Sorry,
I would say times are changing.
Okay, fair enough. It's definitely a two-way street. So the clubs have to be interested, even and the Americans have to want to go there. And you find yourself at Nantes. How is the transition to France after Sweden, after Scotland? How different is the football and how much have you grown as a player while you've been there?
Yeah, it's a big step. It's a lot bigger step than maybe I might have thought it at first. I came here obviously after the Gold Cup and in the summer, and I did well in the very beginning. And then obviously as the season went on, I picked up a couple of injuries here and there, but as the teams, started getting to gel with each other, it got a little bit tougher as time went on. The physicality, the speed of play, your thought process, just everything happens a lot quicker and everything. But for me, I think it has helped me grow as a player tremendously. Technically, tactically, just be more. I mean, I guess you can call it soccer knowledgeable. But it was definitely a big step from Sweden. The guys are bigger, they're more tactically aware, they're smarter with the ball. They're not rushed as maybe back in Sweden. Maybe a center back can just kick a long ball. You try to play out of the back and things like this. So it was a little bit different, but it helped me in every way. And I think I've gotten more comfortable here as time has gone on, and I'm trying to adjust to a new position as well the whole season. So it's a little bit different, but I think that's what's made me a better player.
You went from Sweden, where you started your pro career, to Scotland with Rangers, and that obviously Rangers had issues financially and everything kind of fell apart. Do you regret that move at all? It wasn't necessarily, I'm not sure you would call it a success. I'm sure you had some good times, but it doesn't seem like it would have advanced your career as much as you would have liked.
Yeah, no, I mean, I you'd love to say live life with no regrets, and I wouldn't say I regret that move because as much as it was troublesome to get some playing time, or the mess that it was to be there at some point, I think I still had some memorable time, and it was a experience, and it made me a better person, a better player, and you have to be able to get through tough times to get where you want. And I learned a lot from that situation. Of course, it was not maybe the best soccer move for me, but at that time in Sweden, I had the chance to play for Rangers, which historically, traditionally is a very big club. And I did not see this coming, nor did many people, I would think. And just the opportunity to play at a big club like Rangers, and, everybody wants to play in Champions League and Europa League, whatever, in Europe. And that chance seemed like it would be legit by going to Rangers. So that's the reason why I went there. looking back at it now, I mean, obviously I would probably think differently and choose to go elsewhere maybe because, I mean, the Scottish League isn't the best, and maybe for my development, it wasn't the best. But I have no regrets about that. I still had a great experience. The opportunity to play with Maurice Adu and Carlos Bocanegra and other great players who were there at that time who are now playing in various clubs in the English Premier League. I'll never forget that year.
I think a big club, Champions League every year when they were in the top division, and obviously they liked Americans, and that helped. I'm sure that helped a little bit. Now you're at Nantes in France right now. You guys mid-table, having I guess would be a pretty good year. I'm not sure how you guys feel in the dressing room. I'm sure you'd like to do better, but it's not by no stretch a bad season. And then the transfer ban comes down, and I don't know. That's about incoming players. They can't sign anybody at the club for 18 months. How does that impact what you guys do on the field and sort of the feeling around the club when there is some, administrative issue like that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, we started out the season with a bang, I guess you could say. I think going into winter break, into Christmas break, we were fourth place. And the talk of the town, of course, fans getting excited. Oh, Europe, European place, everything like this. And then the new year came and we went into a bit of a funk, and we had, I think it was like something like an 8-game winless streak we were on. But we are finally able to break that this past weekend against Montpellier at home and then win 2-1. But I think, I mean, like you said, I don't know if the season can be called a success or failure yet by any means, but being in this position, I'm sure many people at the beginning of the season didn't think we would be here. We'd probably be fighting relegation, so they probably think that we'd be near the bottom. But we're a little bit safer now, and it feels better, obviously, with the last win. But, of course, we would like to be higher up in the table. And I remember I said at the beginning of the season that we had the players and team to be finishing the top 10 in this league, which I think would be a great accomplishment for the club, being that it's the first time in League One in a few years, some years. So that'll be good. But on the other hand, we got this transfer ban. And to be honest with you, I don't know too much about it, all the details about it. But obviously having a transfer ban for 1.5 years is tough. And I know we have some players here and some young up-and-coming players as well that are quality. But, of course, to stay up and do well in the league, teams normally have to spend to get some good quality players to help the team. So that'll be tough, as well as, we're losing our main striker, the guy who scored most of the goals for half the goals on our team, Filip Djordjevic, he signed a contract with Lazio this summer. So he'll be leaving. So, to fill in that void, you would normally assume that the club would need to buy another player to cover that loss of goals. So that makes it tough. But I think the mentality in the dressing room is still, each playing for the best for the team and trying to help the club as much as possible. And, I mean, it's times like this that I feel like players like myself and other players who've been here long or who really love the club or want to help their cause, and this is where you get the chance to shine and become, a big player for the club and, to have a career moving forward.
Yeah, helping on the field, get through this, and 13th right now, chance to get into the top half would obviously be an accomplishment for the club. And you're also leading I Believe chants in the locker room. I just saw a video today, Alejandro, of you leading the I Believe chant. First of all, how did that start? How did you become the guy who does that chant in the locker room?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Obviously, coming here with different language, different country, and me being American, speaking English, and my teammates, most of them really, the English isn't so good, and they speak French or the African language or whatever it is that may be. Normally, after a win, I think in every locker room, you kind of want to celebrate by doing something, and here mostly it's by chanting a song or putting on some song and dancing to it. And at the beginning, it would be, the first few wins, they would it would be somebody, who knows who it would. It could change from win to win, whoever led something. And this game was the game against Ajaccio away. I came off the bench and scored the lone goal in that match. And that's when everybody was, oh, Ale, Bedoya, come on, let's go. You have to come up with something. Come on, your turn.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what got into my head. I couldn't really. That was the first thing that popped into my head. From me watching YouTube videos, in college or my free time or whatever, I remember this chant for some reason right at that time. So I just got up, started banging on the table, and just did the I believe, I, and I just told them to repeat after me, and they did that, and everybody had like bottles of water in their hands, and as soon as I believe that we will win finished, and we all just started jumping around and throwing water all over the place. So it worked out pretty well, and they really liked it. I think there's something about some of the guys that they're all about the American mentality and like our way of seeing sports and our our dedication and everything. So it just stuck with the group. And after every game, after every win, they would say, "Oh, Bedoya, come on, you do it." And there was even one game when one of the French guys did it himself. He did it in English, and it was fun. So it's all good times, and I think that helped me out. Get closer to the group and break the ice that was in between us and the language barrier.
Yeah, I mean that's a part of what I was going to ask you next is, and I'm sure in Sweden there was an element of it too, but in France I imagine that the language and sort of creating a camaraderie in a club that has such a wide array of kinds of guys, got to be a little tough, and stuff like that can be that bridge, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in Sweden, everybody speaks pretty much perfect English, good English. Obviously, in Glasgow, they speak English, but even English that I don't even understand at times. But here in France, that was a difficult part early on, was the language barrier. And like I said, like you said also, that chant really kind of broke the ice, and it involved me amongst the group, and everybody saw, kind of my personality come out in that chant. And I think that was really good in creating relationships in the locker room with the guys and on and off the field too. So yeah, looking back, it's a good moment, and I love doing it every time we win.
Now you know that American soccer fans are obsessed with our guys playing abroad. Lots of eyes on you. Obviously, World Cup coming up this summer, and people are going to be assessing your chances of making the roster. Obviously, it's ultimately up to Jurgen Klinsmann. How much of that is in your head as you're going about your business at Nantes?
Yeah, of course it gets in your head a little bit. Obviously, all the other stuff that's what fans are for. They're there to, I guess, answer the polls, answer questions, vote for who they think they should go, and that's part of supporting a team. But for me, I really don't. I try not to think about it too much. The way I like to look at things is I control what I can control. And what's that is me playing on the field to the best of my ability. Right now is helping out Nantes, finish off the season strong and to the best of my ability, perform well, be consistent. And, if I can get some goals and assists, that's, an extra plus, and that'll help my confidence as well. And that'll increase my chances, I would suppose, to get on the plane to Brazil. So that's really how I look at it. I can only worry about myself really, and what I can impact is what I can control. So all the other stuff is obviously my job is to make it as hard as possible for Klinsmann to leave me out. If it was to Brazil. So I just hope to finish my season strong here in Nantes, and the rest would speak for itself.
Is part of the national team experience for you? I mean, I know you guys are always on Twitter going back and forth. I imagine there's a lot of texting that happens. I imagine there's, a lot of that, remote camaraderie that's got to happen because you guys are all playing in different places. But how much of being a U.S. national team guy is paying attention to what's happening? Are you aware of what, Josie's doing on the field and what Aaron is doing, and then, seeing where players are in terms of injury and health and all? Is that stuff that you're actually aware of, say, week to week ahead of a World Cup?
yeah, I think, of course, through social media and through, yeah, like you said, text messaging, the thing I find interesting about this national team, I feel, is that we have a camaraderie, I feel like no other national team. I think us Americans and this national team, we've built all good relationships that have lasted, and on and off the field, and we're, off the field, we stay pretty close, and we're all good friends with each other, and things like that. Of course, competition is competition. That's all part of the game, and you all work towards the best of the team. But off the field, we're all pretty close, and like I said, social media helps us connect with each other and with fans as well. But obviously, with the World Cup coming up, everything is getting magnetized and blown up all over the place. So it is in your face kind of thing. And I read things on Twitter, like I said, Instagram, Facebook, and you read articles about what's going on here and there and how this person's doing. I still follow MLS, obviously, and as well as other leagues here in Europe all the time, and you watch highlights and things like this. So you see how people are doing, how guys are doing, how your teammates and friends are doing, and you text each other as well and catch up with one another and how things are going. And so there is how do you say? There is a following, I would say, from everybody. Everybody knows what kind of each other is up to, and I think that's the way it should be, I guess. And you just try to, if anything, you don't let anything get to you. You use it as motivation.
Definitely a cool thing about following that team and you guys is that we can sort of stand back, at least on social media, watch you interact in ways that, as you said, I'm not sure that there's another national team on the planet that does it exactly that way. And part of that is, none of you guys are using your Twitter accounts as brand extensions right now. I mean, it is, but it's not. You know what I mean? It's still your personal Twitter account. You get to interact with people, whereas, Cristiano Ronaldo's not really tweeting his thoughts.
Right. Yeah. It does. You do get a feel that it's still our personal accounts. Yet, I mean, some of the things that I would say to my friends that I could just tweet, to be fun or something, I will not tweet.
No, smart. That's smart.
We have to be seen as more of a role model type player and things like this. So I can't really say it is my personal account, because what I would want to say, maybe I can't. But but yeah, I mean, we, like I said, and like you said, I don't know if there is another national team that is as tight as us. Good group of guys. Everybody kind of care. Everybody kind of really cares for each other. Like I said, there's competition for places, but that's normal. But at the end of the day, everybody's working towards the same goals now, and that's to do the best they can to get on Brazil, and to do the best they can for when you get the chance to play for the national team.
How much were you sort of stunned by the draw? I mean, look, I know, talked to enough athletes to know it's not, you're not going to tell me I know I'm going to Brazil. You're going to say you're going to be fighting for your place, and you hope you're there. I get that. But when you saw that draw, Ghana, Portugal, Germany, what was your first reaction?
Well, I can tell you the story. When I first found out, I was actually on the bus ride over to the game against Marseille away at the Velodrome. I was just leaving the hotel, and the draws were just happening. I heard that the draws were just happening. So I remember I just got to the stadium and didn't have service. And all of a sudden I get into the locker room at Marseille, and we walk out to the field in the stadium right before the game, just look at it, see the stadium and everything. And I got service finally, and all of a sudden I get a bunch of texts saying, "Oh my God, you see your group of death, blah, blah, blah." So I'm like, oh, wow. And I'm just sitting in the field, and I'm discussing the different draws with the different teammates who, the striker here is a good friend of mine, Filip Djordjevic. He plays for Serbia. And he's telling me all the draws and blah, blah, blah. And we're going over it. And, obviously the first reaction is, okay, yeah, group of death. Like, wow, Germany, Portugal, Ghana. I mean, hey, it is the World Cup, right?
Sure.
So it's the best of the best. So I guess I used it like motivation, because that night, I ended up scoring the game winner there in Marseille, 1-0. It was a big win for us in the club. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, the first thought would be like group of death, obviously, like everybody else thought, like, wow. But at the same time, hey, you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? So
Does that help you? I mean, last thing I'll ask you is does that help you guys as a team sort of focus on what you got to do? I mean, is there any extra element to preparations that might come because this is the group of death, and if you're going to get through, you got to be on point?
Yeah, I mean, it serves as extra motivation, right? I mean, I feel like I said, this camaraderie that we have amongst ourselves in the national team, I think that helps us out tremendously. You know, we're all going for that one goal, and that is to get out of the group. And you know, I guess people see us as underdogs in this group, and you know, they see it as a very difficult group for us. But I think we're all pretty confident that, you know, we trust each other, and we know that we stick to our game plan and play to the best of our abilities, that we can do well and you know, and get out of the group.
There's U.S. international and non-swinger Alejandro Bedoya joining us on Soccer Morning. Thanks a lot for your time, Alejandro. I appreciate it. Best of luck for the rest of the league on season.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Hope to see you in Brazil.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
There goes Alejandro. Good stuff there. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll reset. Open up the phone lines for the last segment of Soccer Morning on a Wednesday. North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. Back on Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Today's music, by the way, brought to you by Eric Hunt, contributor to the Indiegogo campaign. I forgot to mention that, or I didn't have his name. That's one of them. I just didn't have his name. Thank you very much, Eric. Obviously, that's Get Lucky from Daft Punk featuring Pharrell. Good stuff there. Can only play so much of this music, guys. There's only so much we can play on this program before we start getting into some dangerous legal areas. Thank you very much to Alejandro Bedoya for joining us. Good conversation with him as he goes through the Ligue 1 campaign with Nantes and looks forward to the World Cup in Brazil. He's on my roster. Is he on your roster? Alejandro Bedoya? On my roster. On your roster? Yeah. Ahead of that, before that, a week from today, the United States plays Mexico in Phoenix. We'll get to see what Jurgen Klinsmann is thinking in terms of MLS players available to him for that game, who he wants to get a look at. Guys like Maurice Adu, who have started the season very well, have sort of been in U.S. men's national team no man's land for a little while. Those are guys that will probably get a look. Let's open up the phone lines, 347-756-6276. We can talk Revs and the situation there, the Boston Magazine piece from Kevin Alexander. We can talk jersey etiquette. Now, if you are not familiar with my one major rule, look, we're throwing out all of these arbitrary rules about when you can wear a jersey, when you can't. You know, one man's opinion here. And we've heard from some people on Twitter and through the phone line. One man's opinion. You don't have to listen to me. You want to wear your jersey, wear it. It's fine. The one rule that I have that I'm really sort of jokingly passionate about, like if I really thought about it, there is a part of me that gets annoyed to the point where I'm just ticking over to a tiny bit of anger. It's wearing a jersey of a team that is not playing in the game you are going to watch. This is tourist behavior. This is sci-fi convention behavior, Comic-Con behavior. This is cosplay. If you're going to the big international friendly at the local NFL stadium and it's Milan versus Manchester City, and you show up in your Manchester United shirt just to be that guy, I don't know. Don't do that. Don't do that. A soccer match isn't an opportunity to wear whatever soccer jersey you have in your closet. It's not. You wouldn't go to a Yankees Red Sox game in an Orioles shirt unless you want to get beat up. And I know you're probably not going to get beat up at the big American International Friendly. Very likely you won't get beat up. But the same rules apply. The same rules apply. Oh, look, someone going back, a little callback from earlier discussion about what the David Beckham documentary would be called as he works to get soccer at a stadium built in Miami, gets soccer back to Miami. Build it like Beckham. All right, that's good. That's good. It's that's not real clever. Build it like Beckham, bend it like, yes. And I saw several headlines today talking about the selfie experience and his trip to Tallahassee. Beckham attempts to bend lawmakers' ears. Okay. Eddie on Twitter. True story. I want to punch every person in a Barcelona shirt at Red Bull Arena. There you go. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. I'm gonna go all the way back to PCU, 1993. I want to say some of you are too young to remember this movie. Jeremy Piven, before he was ever on Entourage. You don't wear the band's T-shirt to their concert. Don't be that guy. This is different. The sports rules are a little different. You wear the shirt of the team that's playing. Even if you're, obviously if you're going as an away fan, you probably need to be in a group of away fans. But in the international friendly milieu where it's mainly families, there's not really that edge to it. You still shouldn't show up in your third team jersey. It shouldn't be going to a Red Bulls game in a Barcelona shirt. I know Thierry Henry played at Barcelona. I realize that. I know that we had Rafa Marquez with the Red Bulls and he played at I realize that. That's still not a reason to wear the jersey. Baseball tip in from Doug. I saw a guy at a Pirates game with a Twins hat and a Brave shirt. The guy's not allowed to live. He's not allowed to live. All right. We didn't really get into the UEFA Nations League discussion. Got happily interrupted by Alejandro Bedoya. Got a couple minutes here. Let's just review this again. UEFA has voted to create a Nations League in which tiers of teams, 16 teams leagues, will play round-robin groups and then go on to play semifinals and finals in the summer in odd-numbered years. Essentially, again, this replaces friendly dates. It's going to use those friendly dates that are built into the FIFA calendar. My question, while I think this is cool on one level, my question is, how does this impact the rest of the world? If the UEFA nations are playing more competitive matches, because that's what these are, there's a championship at the end. There's a trophy. It's not just going out and, we decided to try a 4-3-3. So we're going to throw that out there against this team in a friendly, because really the result doesn't matter. If they're going to play competitive matches while everybody else around the world is playing friendlies, first of all, that limits the friendly opponents available to those other countries. But second, it creates an imbalance in the number of competitive matches played. How do you rank teams? And look, the FIFA rankings are a joke and nobody likes them. They're terrible. We all pick them apart, but they mean something when we get to World Cup time. What impact does this have on that process? Because that'd be my concern as a U.S. national team fan. If I'm a Mexico fan, that's my concern. If I'm a South American, now look, in South America, you get Copa America, quality competition, big time competition, going to help on that level. And they play Copa America like every 2 years now, right? Every 2 years, Copa America? Odd number of years, right? So essentially this is UEFA saying we need a Copa America, sort of, but over a longer timeline, not a month tournament. Still looking into the implications of this. Again, as a fan, just as a soccer fan in general with no attachment to any particular nation, This is cool. It sounds like a way to add even more competitive soccer to the insane buffet we already have. Who doesn't want to see them do this? Except for those knock-on effects. Don't know where that goes. Don't know what that means. Somebody do the math for me. Not a math guy. Somebody do the math. What does this mean? It's a little bit more background here from the Telegraph piece. Concept of the Nations League was first proposed by UEFA last year as Michel Platini, the European governing body's president, sought to restore the prestige of international football. The success of the Champions League in particular sparked concern that what was traditionally considered the highest level of the game had been overtaken by elite club competition. Now, that's the cynical part of this, is those national federations, and led by Michel Platini, trying to wrest back some of the prestige from the Champions League, from club football. Trying to get some of that control back. Because if it was up to the clubs, we'd have no international football. If it was ultimately up to the biggest clubs in the world who pay all the salaries, we wouldn't even have international dates and friendlies and World Cups. Maybe we'd still get the World Cup. Just once every 4 years, you guys can go play. But other than that, we don't want to do this. Boston Red with another good point. More opportunities for cap tying by UEFA teams. Now, if it is a league that requires these teams to be top of their game, you're going to have some tough games and some easy games. It's going to be harder to work in experimental players, right? Guys who may not be ready, give them a shot. I don't know. Nick says, do you see CONCACAF adopting something similar? CONCACAF's not deep enough. CONCACAF's not good enough. I don't think. You can't go very deep in CONCACAF before you get to some pretty poor teams. I guess if you want to make those competitive, sure, why not? I don't know. All right, thanks again to Kevin Alexander for joining us. Go follow him on Twitter, KAlexander03, writing on Soccer for Esquire. Obviously, go check out the magazine, the Boston Magazine piece on the Revs. Thank you to Alejandro Bedoya for joining us, giving his insight both into his club career in France and looking forward to the World Cup this summer. All right. And thanks to Eric Hunt for DJ playlist number 2. Number 2? Number 3? Number 3. Monday we did one song. Thanks, Nathan. Monday we did one song. Playlist number 3. We'll be back tomorrow. Another big episode. Soccer Morning on a Thursday. Go to iTunes, get the ratings and the reviews working. Follow us on Twitter. All of that stuff. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
Shivers in your fever, scream me again. Never kisses, or do you ever send a full stop? Do you know where the water go? They go on to take your